let's get started. So, like you heard before, I'm Kelly Sieben. I'm the marketing manager at DKIX North America, and today we are doing the panel "Hire Smarter, Earn Big: Cracking the Code to Profitable Teams." So with that, as we know, network operations, we talk all the time about scale and speed and uptime, but none of it happens without the people behind the technology. So they're the ones that are driving the innovation, the resilience, and when the team is built inclusively and intentionally, the payoff is not just ethical, it's also financial. So today, we'd love to welcome our amazing panelists, and I'll let them each introduce themselves briefly and give you kind of their backstory on inclusive hiring from both sides as the applicant and a manager. Great. You want to start us off, T. Mark?
Good morning, everyone. My name is T. Mark Jones, and I'm with Internet Systems Corporation, and we author and maintain Bind DNS software and Kia DHCP software. So thank you very much for your time this morning. I look forward to an exciting panel. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Atefe Yousefi Atai. I go by Ati, and I am a senior cloud network engineer at Oracle. And I'm really excited to be part of this panel today. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brooke McFarland. I'm an account manager with the Cloud Majors team at Nokia. I joined Nokia with an early development program, so I'm excited to be sharing my experiences with you all today.
Good morning again. I'm Les Williams. I am at Netflix, but today I'm sitting as a vice chair of our program committee. I'm also on a community engagement team, and just an ardent non-ogger. My journey is really in networking and interconnection, but in those roles, I've worked on building adaptive teams and inclusive teams, and I've seen firsthand how inclusive practices have translated into business outcomes. So I'm here to share some of that with you today.
Well, Les, you just led me perfectly into the first question I'd love to start with you on, which is, how do you evaluate the business impact of hiring diverse talent, especially in technical roles like network operations?
Good question, and way to put me on the spot. But I think you look at metrics. So you look at the productivity of your team, you look at the innovation, the innovative capabilities. There is a good report from McKinsey, actually, that talked about the fact that diverse teams have between 19% to 38% increase in innovation revenues, like revenues directly from innovation. And if you all would permit me a little bit of time, I think we have an hour, right? So
we do. We'll have questions.
I did look for a few examples, not just in the networking space. I'll bring it back to the networking space, but just to show how hiring people from diverse backgrounds have translated into measurable business impact. For instance, Wegmans hired a lady whose husband was diabetic, and she, through the care of her husband, explored cauliflower rice. So that became a health line and a really valuable product for Wegmans. So it's a whole industry transforming bit that just came from one employee. Another one is at Netflix back in 2015, and a group of Black employees were there, and they got to see how the content was distributed. And they have, if you go on to social media, you'll see strong Black lead. That's a Netflix tag that catered towards that demographics. The same goes on and on. For instance, Speechify, if anyone has used Speechify, like when you look text to speech stuff, really helpful for dyslexic people. And the entrepreneur of Speechify was a dyslexic person. So bringing those folks, having folks with those different types of lived experiences can just open up new markets for a company that they probably were not even thinking of, and it just contributes directly to that top line. Bringing that into the networking space, when you look at the network, especially at the operational level, we have all these things going on in the industry. We have all these designs and things like that. bringing folks with different perspectives really can help with the design. So people thinking differently as to how we go about network designs, as to how we build our operation systems. For instance, I have built infrastructure at the local level and globally. When you interact globally, when you want to negotiate things globally across the board, and you have folks who are of diverse backgrounds that can relate, I think it does translate a lot. So back to your question, metrics, innovation,
Metrics.
impact, yes.
Thank you so much, Les. You have such a wealth of knowledge, and even just those examples from outside the industry really help illustrate the point. Kind of switching gears into a similar question, but for the rest of y'all, what are some non-obvious signs that can tell you that a workplace really values inclusion and isn't just performative? Do we want to start with T-Mark?
Yes, sure. Well, one, I'll use ISC as an example.
Great.
And one of the things that we pride ourselves on is the company sponsors and is a champion for professional development. So we encourage our employees to travel to various conferences. And in fact, there are 3 of us in this room right now from ISC. But we encourage and champion our employees to continue to develop themselves professionally. That does a few things. It makes them happier in their own lives because they feel like they are forwarding their careers, they're forwarding their knowledge, they're forwarding their understanding. And it benefits ISC because now they have additional skills that they can bring to bear, additional talents, additional capabilities. It really, really helps with retention because, the panel we're talking about hiring, which is a critical component to a successful business. You also want to think about keeping the people that you have in place. It's like getting customers. It's important to keep customers. It's as important to keep customers as it is to hire customers or bring in new customers. Same thing with hiring. So, or same thing with staff. It's just as important to retain staff as it is to hire new staff. So again, using ISC as an example, a workplace that champions inclusion, commitment to personal development, I think those are things that show that an organization is committed to equity in its hiring practices.
Thank you for that great example. And I'm so happy that 3 ISC people are in the room and developing professionally. So Ati, what about you? What do you think really shows that a workplace values inclusion?
Yeah, sure. For me, my story, a big one is who is being listened to in meetings. So when everyone gets a chance to speak, not just the loudest voice. And another sign is how feedback is handled. If people can give honest feedbacks without any fear, that shows real inclusion. So, and the other thing is when company invest in mentoring or growth opportunities for underrepresented employees, that's not performative anymore. It's like action. It's action.
It's awesome. And also a plug for the mentorship committee here at NANOG. So if you want to find that outside of your company, another good option. What about you, Brooke? What do you think it really shows that a company values inclusion?
Yeah, I think this is a great question. One way that I like to explain it is through a common experience that all of us have experienced at least once in our lifetime. When you walk up to a group of people who are in an engaged conversation, hoping to find connection and join the conversation, and then you're standing there and you realize that the conversation is moving on without you. An opposite experience to that would be, if people make space for you to join their circle, they give you the context of what they're talking about, and they introduce you to the people that you haven't met standing in that circle. And I think when it comes to a workplace environment, this similar feeling can be provided to individuals that need it by spending time with them one-on-one to get to know them and their experiences, providing context to the discussions that are happening currently within the business, and then also telling them about the decisions that are currently being made. So that way they're fully informed about what's happening and they can then contribute and collaborate with the team. So I think that's one of the ways that you can create an inclusive environment.
Awesome. I love that. As we move on, we're going to touch on hiring, the actual hiring of people. So I'd love to start with a question about the mentorship, because we brought that up just now. What role do you think you see mentorship and sponsorship playing in retaining diverse hires once they're in the door? So again, getting back to that retainment part. So just it's open question. Anyone want to talk about mentorship, sponsorship in retaining diverse talent?
I'll kick it off. Mentorship and sponsorship, I think, is really critical because I like to go back to some of the numbers, and I think I had a theme there before with regards to retention. Coming from Amazon, my previous company, one of our leadership principles is hire and develop the best. And you do not only hire people, you bring them in, but you also invest because hiring itself has a lot of cost to it. And retention is what makes that investment that a company makes to bring in a talent more viable and adds to the company's bottom line. So if you're bringing people in and you do not have a structure to nurture them, to help them grow and feel valued and wanting to stay, invest in their well-being, then you have what we call a leaky bucket syndrome because they come in and they go out, they come in and they go out, and nobody wants to be doing that. So mentorship plays a great role in doing that, making sure people that are coming in feel welcomed, helping them, diffuse the imposter syndrome, and helping them to see opportunities and feel empowered to take those steps. And taking a step further with mentorship is the sponsorship part. And you don't necessarily have to be a mentor to be a sponsor of someone. You can just take someone and advocate for them in rooms where they are not present and make sure that you echo their talent that they probably cannot speak for themselves.
Thanks, Les. That's awesome to hear. Do you want to add anything, Brooke or Ati, about the mentorship sponsorship process?
Sure, I can share. I did say a little bit of a hot take during our pre-planning call where I said without mentorship, I likely wouldn't have lasted in my role. I think one of the things about our industry is that there's so much tribal knowledge that exists, and it's in this giant box of acronyms and deep technical concepts that if you haven't been exposed to it previously, then you might be a little bit overwhelmed when you first join. So for me, mentorship has been key. One of my mentors is here, actually. Ashley Applegarth. So she's been one of the individuals who have helped me understand, some of the unspoken rules that you might not have heard. Like one of them, as a junior employee, is that networking events are not optional. Some of my peers are like, well, it's just an opportunity for free food and free drinks, right? Like, why do I really need to be there if it's a Thursday night and I'd rather be at home? But it's really an opportunity to get people to view you as an individual outside of a function within an organization and to actually build relationships with the people that you're working with. So I think without mentorship, these roles would be a lot harder, and mentorship really gives you a more well-rounded experience and an invitation to our industry.
Awesome, thank you. And good job having your sponsor or your mentor in the room. Yeah. So talking a little bit more about hiring, what advice would you give to hiring managers to make interviews feel more welcoming and less high stakes for candidates with non-traditional backgrounds? Do we want to start with T. Margarati, one of you?
Yeah, I kind of started. So we can make interviews more like real conversations, not just focus on the people resumes, basically. And for me, that's when potential shines and people can be, present what they really are, not just go through their resumes and ask questions, just asking them how they resolving the problem and just, try to know the people, not that just asking the regular questions.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that part. They're humans. Mm-hmm. They're humans. What about you, T. Mark?
Yes, so that it can even start prior to the interview process. So for example, at ISC, one of the things that we do is we will describe the nature of the job and the nature of the work that we would like for a candidate to perform, and describe the environment, even down to saying, this is our environment is where we work remotely from our homes. So in jobs descriptions, we will say that the job is a work from home remote position. It is suitable for those who may have small children. It is suitable for those who have these various life experiences. So then what happens is someone says, oh, that is something that's now viable for me, which may not have been. It allows people who come to us from diverse places, from different dynamics, different home dynamics, different work dynamics, to say this is some place that I might be able to thrive in, because again, they're not so much focused on, well, you must have these credentials, you must have done this. It's more like, here's what we'd like for you to do. Where do you think you fit into that realm? So to go back directly to your question, with respect to the interview itself, that can be an extension of how you describe the position. You describe the position a certain way, you get people with a more diverse background to get into the interview process. And then once in the interview process, as Atia said, you can scope that conversation as a dialogue to get to know a person and get to know what they bring to the table.
Thank you. What about Les or Brooke? Would you guys want to add on what the hiring managers can make interviews feel more welcoming?
In most interview process, I think there is much more than one person that might be involved. You have maybe the screener and recruiter, and then you have a bunch of other folks. And I've been fortunate to be in large organizations where you probably go through loops, and it is a very structured, measured process to ensure that all those boxes are checked. But if you find yourself in an organization that doesn't have all of that, I think as a hiring manager, you can be a catalyst to rally the folks that are in that group before the process, making sure, like Timac says, you're looking at the job description, that it's not alienating people. We did an exercise where we took words out like super, rock star, and all those things, just to make it a little bit more relatable to people. So that's one way already that you're giving them a level of comfort, and letting people know that you go into an interview, even as a manager, not from a position of power, but from a position of exploring what could be had, the value that could be generated by that marriage of the talent and the company. So you want to make sure whatever the outcome is, that person would always speak highly of that company, right? So you want to create that experience. So you do all the necessary things to make sure that that interview process goes that way. And when they come in, they feel simple things like, oh, welcome. How are you? Do you need a time for a bathroom break before we start our conversation? Do you need some water? It just disarms someone and puts them at ease and makes them feel welcome. So all those little nuances managers should pay attention to.
Yeah, and I love how you included like that even if people don't end up working at the company, it's still giving a good taste in their mouth from the inclusivity that you're able to bring to the interview process.
Yeah.
It brings your brand higher up in esteem in a lot of ways. So another ROI from inclusivity. Brooke, did you have anything you wanted to add about?
Yeah, Les, I love your response talking about creating a level of comfort and exploring. While I was interviewing with Nokia, during my first interview, the recruiting manager took the time to get to know me outside of just my academic involvement and my achievements. And we actually ended up going over the hour just talking about things that we enjoyed doing outside of work. And I felt like she viewed me more than just a potential employee, but as a person. And then during my second round of interviews, it actually started with my interviewer telling me about an interview fail they had where they were interviewing someone who was applying for a more junior position and accidentally started asking them more senior level questions. And he suddenly realized the interviewer was in a panicked, frantic state, not knowing how to answer these questions. And for me, it was just a funny moment that he could share a fail that he had, and it created an opportunity where I felt like I could release myself from over editing my language or speaking in too formal of a tone that would keep me from expressing the most authentic version of myself. So these two interviewers really helped me see the culture that Nokia has and made me more comfortable when I was interviewing.
That's awesome. I love authenticity, so I'm a big fan. So talking a little bit about more like the team culture. So can you share maybe like, let's start with you, Ati, an example of how supportive team culture helped you grow in your career?
Yes, ma'am. In my first job here, like I was a NOC engineer I was working in Network Operations Center department. I joined a multicultural team. We had Spanish, Indian, African, and American, and me, Persian. And I came into this role as a newcomer to the US, so trying to adjust to new languages and culture. And that made everything even harder for me. But my teammates helped me after every call. I can say after every single call. They tried to correct me, and 6 months later, I was the to go-to person for the toughest customer calls. And everyone asked me, "Hey, Ati, can you take these calls and just help us? This customer is mad." And I got 3 promotions in less than a year in the same department. In my story, support turned into growth, for me, because turned my fear into growth, basically with what they did to me. And my team didn't make me feel like an outsider from that team. And they stood by me and they helped me at that time. And I believe their support is the reason I was able to grow and so quickly to find my voice in that team and shine there. So that's why I'm here.
Love a supportive team.
Yes.
Would anyone else like to talk about supportive team culture helping you grow? Maybe Brooke or D-Mark?
You want to go? I'll comment on that too. I think you kind of touched on it. Like employee resource groups are really great, and for me, every company I go into, like when we're in school, you have like extracurricular, right? You have clubs, like you have chess club or whatever, and all that, and that's where you make friends, and that's where you bond with people. We spend a lot of our waking hours working and with our work colleagues, right? So for me, I tend to abstract all the talk about like the nice brands and the diversity and all that, and just to like building connection and having an entertaining and good place to work, and having employee resource groups does provide that. And what there's the company I was at before had what they call the connection score. Because you come into a company, you have your team, you have your department, but being in those groups helps you to build networks across the company so fast. And you find out that what you might be needing from a development team to fix your networking platform, to report on your SLAs or your statistics and everything, the person that you need, the resource that you're going to need for that project happens to be somebody that you were just hanging out with at one of those resource groups, or they know somebody that can do it. So that for me has always been a great way for me to just navigate a company, know who's who, and be able to get the resources I need to be successful at my job.
Did anyone else want to add to that before I move on?
Yes, I'd say one thing to consider when it comes to culture is that you really want to have that be a company, almost like a company mandate or a company edict. So for example, again, I'll use ISC as the example. We are, again, a globally distributed workforce. We're in 14 different countries where our dynamic is many people, English is maybe their 3rd or 4th language. So in order for us to be successful, we have to have some sort of corporate culture, and we have to drive corporate culture. And it's an interesting thing, because how do you define culture? Because when you bring someone in, they become part of the culture. So what we do is we do some structural things. We meet as a company once a year at an all-hands event, and that is primarily solely for the purpose of for people to get to know one another. Then each of our staff members, again, globally distributed, but they work in conjunction with other folks, and they may attend conferences, they may do things together. So those are opportunities to further the culture as well. And then we have structures in place at ISC. We have an internal messaging board system. We have an internal system where people can share vacation photos, things like that. Just the standard humanity stuff that's important to do, that we have an added asterisk, because we can't travel to see one another. I can travel to see my colleague Jason Lasky because he's he's in the room and he's just across the bay from me. But other folks are in other countries, so that's not possible. So it really is incumbent at ISC, incumbent on the management team to make sure that we are creating an environment with all the challenges of time and distance, that we're creating an environment where people feel that they can come together. And the other nice thing about ISC is our work is public work because it's open source software. So what we do is directly, the public can determine whether or not we've been effective at our mission by virtue of how effective the software is. So how are we doing, folks?
Hopefully well. So kind of looking at it from a different angle, how do you encourage team culture that encourages voices to speak up even when maybe it's not an easy situation, especially in these high pressure network environments? So I think Les, you had some thoughts on this in the planning call about how you can encourage voices to speak up even when it's hard.
Yeah, there are different ways. You have to, as a leader, you have to understand like the different personalities within your team and try to style flex for every one of those to the extent you can. But I think some simple ways to make sure everybody feels vested and their voices are heard is looking for different mechanisms for input. Like creating informal, like there's Slack channel and all these things, creating informal mechanisms for people to communicate and exchange ideas. In the networking world, like when things go awry and we do postmortem or, the write-ups later on, try to focus more on the issue and solving for it rather than assigning blame or reprimanding people so that people feel, comfortable that they can make mistakes within a reason, and they always have the support and a safe place to go to get that. If there are stand-up meetings or things like that, rotate the leadership. Even you as a leader probably should lead from behind, take a step back and allow people to lead the meetings on, a regular cadence, somebody else take a turn. And for folks who are, shy or are a little bit nervous, work with them, support them, let them know you're going to be there with them and nothing could go wrong. Just little things. And one thing I like to do when I have meetings, if there's not too many people, I warn everyone that at the end of it, I'm going to go around. So everybody's voice is going to be heard one way or the other. And you can either just have something to say or you can just say, hey, I'm this person. Thanks, nothing to say today. But your voice would be heard on this call. And we do that. So it motivates people to be involved and engaged.
Awesome, thank you. Would anyone else like to add to how to encourage people to speak up or present their viewpoints? Or
Yeah, I can add to that. Earlier I referenced whenever you're joining a conversation and someone takes the time to introduce you or give you context, I think what's also important is calling someone out and saying, hey, Brooke, do you have something to add? I think it can be as simple as just calling them out in a meeting. Not in an aggressive way, but
Brooke,
a thought
please
to
add something.
answer right now. Yeah.
Better add value to this conversation. Awesome. So what would make you guys stay at a company longer beyond salary, title? We all know money matters, but what other aspects of a company would make you want to stay at a role longer? Anyone's available? Sure. T-Mark,
I'm
it's
not
T-Mark.
shy. I can go again.
It's okay, Les. You have a lot
And
of
I
stuff
think
to
it's
share.
appropriate too because I just made a change from one great company to another one, and it was a very, very difficult decision for me to make. I actually had to work with, the previous job that I was at had, as part of their wellness program, they make like coach, like folks that you can talk to. Like it's not like a psychologist, no.
Oh, like a business,
Like a coaching thing, like people that you can
psychological, like
yeah,
a
like you
coach,
like a
business.
trail program. You can talk to them, you can tell them, you can just talk, and so I leveraged that because the key challenge for me in that decision, in that transition, was to leave a team where I have the full trust of my manager, the full trust of my team. I felt belonged, I felt respected, I felt supported. There were areas when if I am faltering in my network metrics or something, I have somebody I can lean on, and we say, okay, I worked on that platform, and vice versa. We were so supportive. So leaving that and moving somewhere else was tough. But there were other reasons personal to me that caused me to make the change. But to answer your question, I think being in an environment where you have a team that is supportive of you, where you feel belonged, where you feel seen, where your ideas are encouraged and you are able to thrive, I think is better than even the salary that you can get, because you have peace of mind and you feel you're productive and you're delivering value. You feel fulfilled.
Yeah, that's great that you felt that in both your old role and your current role. So awesome. Does anyone else want to add about what you think would make you stay at a company, beyond the money and title? Yeah, it's T-Mark. It's T-Mark.
I think it's important for management at a company to really look at the employees, their team members, and it can be, from executive management to line management. And really, if you have a team of 10 people, for example, there are 10 families that you are responsible for. So I want to stay in an organization that looks at me like that, not like, oh, this is T. Mark Jones in sales and whatever. No, it's T. Mark Jones, and he has a family. We're all values a family. He has a family. So I'm committed to creating an environment where he feels that the organization can support him help him can support him in his supporting his own family. So again at ISC we take that approach. It's 45 families that we have to look after, and then that brings a whole host of things. But the key component there is our staff understands that the organization is looking out for my best interests and my family's best interests, and therefore this is an organization I want to stay at. And so how does that play out at ISC? We have a very, very low turnover rate. People stay at ISC once they come on board as an ISC employee. They tend to stay for a long time, which is myself included. So it's kind of working, I think.
Awesome. What about you, Ati? Do you have anything to add about?
Yes, I can add something like, for me, it's not just about hiring the people in, it's about how you support them to stay. And I've never been in the management position, but luckily I had many good managers and leaders in my career life. Even one good morning message in the morning, it's gonna change the day for your employees sometimes, because we really need to just see somebody is paying attention to us. Somebody knows you are there, you are working hard. So again, it's not just hiring them, it's just how you treat them and and just let them stay and feel like a family.
Brooke, you're the last one. What do you got?
I'll answer. I would say the people for sure. One thing I think about too is what price can you put on enjoying your day to day, right? And if the people around you are supporting you and enjoying your work environment, then I think that's really important. And being at Nokia, the community around me is incredibly supportive. They're there to celebrate with me when there's a win, and they're also there to celebrate with me when things are hard. I mentioned Ashley earlier, and something that she said to me whenever I was going through a challenge was, Brooke, this is just hard. And it shifted my perspective from what am I doing wrong? Why am I so bad at this? To how do I overcome this? What can I learn to grow through this? And I think having people like that around you who challenge the way that you think and help you create new perspectives is really important.
Awesome. I also love that all of the theme here is kind of like connection, which is like, it's kind of cliche, but like Nanog's all about connection. And so I love that all of you are kind of leaned into that connectivity with the people in the organization and the investment. Okay, so we're going to move on to a few fun questions before we open it up to the audience. So this is for everyone. I'd love to get you to answer, what is one thing that helped you feel seen in the workplace, that made you feel like a human being and not just a number? D-Mark, I feel like you know, maybe?
Sure. Yes. So just being accepted for who I am, idiosyncrasies, quirks, and all, that is really important to me. And I definitely get that at ISC, so I'm grateful for it. But yeah, just being seen for who I am and taken in as a whole and accepted in that capacity.
Awesome. Ati?
Yes, exactly. I agree with you. So everyone has its own potential. You know, probably I'm not good at everything, and I don't know about everything for sure. You know, there is always something which somebody else knows more than me. And you know, just I like to the team, or you know, my team just accept me as what I am. You know, and for sure, I'm trying my best to do my best in my team, and I like they notice also this one from me.
Brooke?
For me personally, this is a really small one, but pretty much anyone I message, they will respond. You know,
I mean,
they'll
that's
pick up the
big.
phone, they'll talk with you. And I think that's incredibly important because you know that you always have that support there to back you up. And so that's one of the ways that I felt seen.
And Les?
For me, I think it's mostly the ability to have the discretionary room to be innovative and to be secure in that I can fail quickly and correct if I have to, and that I have the support system. And I've been fortunate to be in environments where I've had that, you know, like from my team and folks where, you know, I can just be myself. I can come up with ideas. They will be hard. And I mean, like her accent, but yeah.
Yeah, I feel like psychological safety is a big one, like with the being authentic and being able to fail. So I love that. Okay, one more question, and then we're going to open it up. And that is, okay, everyone, we're talking about inclusive hiring. So what's one assumption that is absolutely wrong about inclusive hiring that we should know is wrong? I think it might be a last question because,
Okay.
sorry.
That's
Talk,
okay.
talk.
Let's see. I think that's a really good question. I think there's a misnomer with inclusive hiring. Like, when you say inclusive, people hear many different things. And one of them is that you're compromising quality. And that's definitely not the case at all. I think what it is that you're reaching out to places that you haven't been before. You're overlooking and you're sourcing new superpowers for your organization, right? From like the examples that I gave before, like you have people with neurodivergent capabilities who are very like could get in a zone and can just focus and can accomplish great things and can bring great perspectives to design work and building processes and things like that. But if they are not given a chance because of the way they present sometimes, they present themselves, they are not as articulate or whatever, you're not taking the time to go beyond your bias to see that, could be problematic. There's also the misnomer as well, following that inclusive means either along the lines of race or along the lines of gender. But it's way beyond that, because there are folks, like we talk about at the network, we talk about the edge and putting everything in the edge. Where is the edge? It's in the rural areas and everything, but you have people in those locales who do not have the opportunity that people in the urban area have, regardless of their race, regardless of their sexual preference, regardless of their mental acuity. They are folks that needs to be considered too, and that's what you need to look at and bring all of that. So I can go on a lot about that particular one, but I'll stop there for now.
Awesome. Did anyone else want to add? I think Ati?
Yeah, I can add. You know, sometimes people misunderstand inclusive hiring, like as lowering a standard or taking a risk by hiring, for example, women in male-dominated area, like my area. I've been doing network engineers for over 10 years, and I feel that. Or even immigrants, right? Actually, for me, it removes unfair barriers, and it raises the bar basically by bringing in smart people with different experiences, different cultures and backgrounds to the team. And many people even don't realize that how much women, especially moms or immigrants, go through just to get here. Long visa process and leaving family behind, learning new systems and language or even cultures, they are very tough, right? So I like to say women in tech or immigrants, we are not a risk. So we are already proven. And we bring global perspectives that makes teams stronger, basically. And we just need a chance to prove ourselves.
Awesome. Thank you, Ati. We're going to open it up to questions. If you want to head to the mic and say your name, introduce yourself, and ask a question. And we already have our first one.
Hi, Clara Wade. I'm with the AWS and with the Community Engagement Committee. I was wondering, what's the best piece of hiring advice that you've received, or something maybe you wish someone had told you as you went into a hiring process and became responsible for interviewing?
Yeah, I can start with that. So the best hiring advice I can say is just you don't need to meet all the requirements for the one job, for example, right? Because in used to, I held myself like back before because of this. I was checking the job descriptions. I was like, okay, I don't know, for example, half of the job descriptions. So next. But now I tell others, like, apply anyway, apply whatever you like, just try it. And I wish more hiring managers would trust applicant without US job experience or the first job, and then or even fresh graduates, because they all needed to be hired somewhere. But especially when I refer someone, even where I work now, so sometimes hiring managers say, "Hey, this is the fresh graduate, so we need people with more experience." So I wish they just trust more to those, people.
Best hiring advice.
Oh, for me, it's vulnerability is a strength, and you need to embrace it. And you know what you know, and you don't know what you don't know. And being able to embrace that, it means you're presenting your authentic self to the employer. And it also means that you are going to be comfortable in your value and address things head on. So in cases when there are questions that you don't know, you should be able to say, I don't know that. I could bring the answer to you, but I'm also a fast learner and things like that. And you can articulate your difference, your unique perspective differently. And if it doesn't work out, then it's fine. You can always move on, because you have to be at a place where you value. So I think I don't over-engineer anymore for an opportunity. I present myself, I laugh if I have to laugh, I apologize if I have to apologize. I said, I don't know if I don't know. And you find out most of the time that resonates with folks, because the person that is interviewing you, no matter how they present themselves, they are human first, right? So.
Awesome. T-Mark, do you guys want to give your best?
Yeah, I can talk about the applicating side of it. I think it's important to leverage things like LinkedIn and social media to get to know the person you're interviewing with before you're ever in front of them. For most of us, we're lucky if we find a point of connection with someone in our very first conversation with them. So if you can find a point of relatability with them before you're ever sitting in front of them, I think that's a key way to help your interview go better and give them an opportunity to get to know you better.
So stalking, you're promoting stalking. Is that, I heard that, right?
recon.
Oh, sorry. Research. Is that better? Okay. T-Mark, last one. What's your take?
Yeah, so hiring advice I would give, or that I wish I'd gotten earlier, is empathy. And as a hiring manager, you really want to have empathy for the people for the applicants, for the job seekers. It is a challenging environment for a whole host of reasons. And you don't know what that person's state is or what their family dynamic is with respect to their being able to support their family. And they're looking to you to satisfy some, a need that they have for resources, for income. So I just say when we go through the hiring process, as much as we can, be empathetic to the condition that the applicant is in and then set an intention to ensure that you create a dynamic where they feel, again, they can be heard and it's a place where they can work. But I think it starts with empathy.
Awesome. Thank you, T. Mark.
Thank you.
Hello, great panel. My name is Colin Doyle. I'm with Nokia. Hi, Brooke. Really good to see her in person. We've talked a lot about inclusion and how we all feel like a culture and a company that we love. And I do believe that we work for people and not organizations. But there's also seems to be a third rail that people rarely want to touch in these conversations. I'm interested to know what your opinion is on compensation transparency. It's a taboo for a lot of people to openly talk about how they're being compensated with both their peers and others. And I think it is an important conversation to have sometimes, particularly when you're trying to evaluate how good you are at making sure that you are being inclusive and treating everybody the same way. I'll sit down and can take my answer.
Who wants to talk about money?
Well, actually, it's an excellent question. I'm in sales, and I've been a career salesperson, so our dynamic is a little bit different in that it's not hard to figure out how much people make when you're in sales. So, beautiful question, but I'm going to refrain from answering simply because my perspective is a little skewed.
I feel like Les might have an answer.
That's a challenging question whenever you talk about money, but I think the way I would approach it is that organizations can look for mechanisms and ways to be a bit more objective about the measurements and how that works with folks. Again, I have come from organizations where there is a leveling system that's well researched and structured that, it maps people's abilities and talents and the job that they're applying for to the compensation along that. So it's pretty much even depending on the tier that you're in and the job that you're in and your level of experience that you bring to the job. And the negotiation process also is kept independent of hiring manager. The hiring manager would have a say in it, but mostly it resides with folks in HR who are strategic negotiators for that purpose, and they would work with folks to do that. So some of it also comes to the individual's empowerment to ask for what they believe they deserve and to make their case, right? Regardless of, again, gender, sexual orientation and everything. But folks nowadays are listening. So I would encourage anyone to do your homework, look at the company's compensation structure and go in informed and say what you want, but also stay flexible and be willing at the end of the day, it's your decision.
And just to add, I also think it's important to note that putting the compensation range in the job description, I don't have the statistics in front of me, but I know it's proven to be beneficial for applicants to understand from the front end, from the beginning, where the compensation range is going to be, and then also be able to know that company is willing to put that out on the internet, and that means that company is willing for their employees to see that we're hiring at a certain rate, and so that transparency does communicate to a sense of openness between companies. So I just want to say I definitely think
that's a great
compensation is something that should be talked about, and I wish it weren't taboo, but sadly it still is. But moving in the right direction. Do you have any other questions? Oh, we got one right there. Two. Okay. We're so popular. Just everyone fighting for the microphone.
Hi, I'm JC. I'm with Google, and my question is for any of the hiring managers on the panel. So we all have our own biases based on our upbringing or our backgrounds. How have you, as a hiring manager, managed to check your biases at the door? And then how would you do you have any advice to give the other hiring managers about that?
Awesome. I think T-Mark, you're a hiring manager less and a little bit up.
I've been in hiring roles. I'm not currently a hiring manager, but I've been in hiring roles, and I've been in hiring panels, like I said, the loop, when we have to hire people and interview them and being a part of that process. So to answer your question, I think we all have to accept that we all have biases, right? You see someone, the way they present, you make assumption based on what you know, and you have to be intentional about it and to check your biases. And when we do interviews, we see what people present, we see the facts, and we go into it wanting to help them be their best selves. So sometimes we ask qualifying questions and let them know really what we're trying to get back. And that has helped to even check our own biases. And I mentioned before the neurodiversity. For me, that was an eye-opener, because if I am talking to you and you're not looking me in the eye, and you're fidgety or you're slow to respond or something, I already begin to judge you. That was before, but I went through a series of training to see that maybe that person just learns differently. Maybe that person just, maybe you're being too fast, and maybe, I have an accent, maybe I need to repeat myself, I need to slow down, and things like, so I always self-check to see that what is meeting me is not always based on my predefined references, but also looking to see what else. And then I can try to ask other things or change my style a little bit to just, get to where we need to get to. But yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah.
Anyone else want to add to? Oh, good.
Actually, I have a personal, story about the bias, so I can share.
Please share it.
And, as an immigrant with no US degree or experience, I, struggled to even get interviews. And despite my technical skills, I tried more than 100 jobs. I'm talking about 13 years ago, but nobody trusts me. That I had to work in accounting for a year and a half and try to earn my Cisco certifications to get noticed somewhere, And but even after my getting my first IT job, one day I had a tough customer calls, and after that, my manager pulled me aside and said, "Hey, Ati, there is a complaint." Somebody called and they said we didn't like that girl accent. So that's why they complained to CEO, and then he wants to listen to all your calls for a month. And he wants to personally check and judge your technical skills and language, basically, how you talk over the phone. So imagine the level of pressure and being judged not just for my technical skills, just because I'm, talking different language and I have accents, and was extremely stressful that time. For me, I passed that test, and in a short time, I was one of the best on that team. But I wish that time they trust me, they trust in my skills, and just don't pay attention to something which, or put me outside of the team. Just monitor my calls to see, how I talk, or how I handle the technical stuff.
Kind of going back to what Les said, it kind of sounds like you have a superpower. You're a bilingual, technical person, and talking about neurodivergent people, they have their own superpowers. So I just think that's really great that the biases of interviewers can also kind of maybe spin it on its head and look for the superpower side of the situation.
Kelly, I have to point out, it is really hard for us to check ourselves to say that I think that's the key. We need to know that it's okay to have a bias and be able to. and that's the challenge, because nobody wants to say, oh, we all have biases, and to accept that, I think, is the first place.
Unavoidable. Let's move. Sorry, we're going to move on. Go for it.
This is Marcos, also from the Kicks. Hi, Kelly. I just wanted to stress that actually everyone has biases, and it's very difficult to check yourself. That's the reason why I think a supervision is the right thing to apply to check your own biases. When you're doing interviews, and I'm a hire manager myself, to be with someone from HR, double checking, talking afterwards. Do you think I was too hard on this question? How did you feel that? So ask and check yourself with someone else that can give you this level of supervision, not only during the interviews, maybe even before, maybe when checking CVs or just like that. You cannot do that yourself.
Yeah, it helps if you different biases.
Yeah.
Eventually, you'll get to the best part. Any other questions? We're going to wrap up. We're just about at time. Oh, we do have another one. Great.
A quick one and a difficult one. Jose Santos, University of Colorado, about mentorship and sponsorship beyond the border of your companies. I mean, you're lucky enough to have a great culture inside, but a lot of these needs are needed also to reach the students, to have some sort of direction, some sort of focus. There's this sort of identity crisis. A lot of students graduating, they don't know what to focus on. They don't know where the future lies. And then sometimes just to get to that door is a challenge. So I know some companies have efforts about, reaching out, college immersion programs like here in Nano. Can anybody comment about the value of that particular
Student
service?
engagement.
Yeah,
Engagement
well, I was on that committee, so I'll try that. Right now, as I sit this morning, actually, I got a note from a student in the University of Washington that I worked with last year when they had their hackathon. And following the hackathon, they all applied, and he got his job, a summer internship, and he started, and he was just telling me about it, and he was excited. And I feel so fulfilled because he would not have probably been able to get that access into our industry and be able to get a start. So I think if you look around us, well, we have a healthy, vibrant, young group, but it's not a lot. And there's still a long to do in the technology space. What happens? Who's coming next? And are they empowered to do so? So I think we all, talking about mentorship and sponsorship, I spend some time outside of my company and everything to reach out to folks in universities, like some of these employee relationship groups as well, to look at hackathons, show up there, be a judge on the panel, talk with people, tell them what I do. Schools that have career day, show up, talk, make your job approachable to them, so that they don't feel intimidated that it's something out of the reach. Get out there, put yourself out there, and it makes all the difference.
Also, just a quick plug for Nomad Futurists. That's a great organization that's working to get more students into the industry and more access. So I know there's a lot of people in our industry working towards this challenge. So we are at time.